Hello, everyone, and welcome to the thru My Story podcast. My name is John, and I am an alcoholic. Today, we are doing a parking lot podcast. We do that once a month, where we just shoot the breeze and talk about different topics. Today's topic is what brought you into Alcoholics Anonymous? What brought you into Alcoholics Anonymous? That is today's topic. So please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and comment on our videos so that YouTube will send them out to alcoholics looking for recovery. And today we have Michelle, Mybelle, George B. in Florida, Jacksonville, I believe, Theophilus in San Diego. Where are you again, Theophilus?
San Diego.
San Diego. Fantastic. All right. And yeah, we're going to talk about what brought us into Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll kick it off. Uh, I was 21 years old in the military, in the Marine Corps, but I knew I had a problem, and I knew alcohol wasn't the problem. I didn't like myself. I didn't like myself. I didn't like life. I didn't like I didn't like myself at all was the main thing. And it occurred to me that I told myself I was not going to be like my father, and I was just like him. And that was the impetus for me to want to change. Um, again, yeah, I just knew I had something wrong with me, but I also knew alcohol was not the problem. Alcohol was the solution. I learned the word intuitive after coming into AA, but looking back, I intuitively knew alcohol wasn't the problem. My problem was how do I get rid of the alcohol to start dealing with the real problem? So yeah, I came in to AA because I wanted to change. I wanted to change. I wanted to, all right, full disclosure, I wanted to be the type of person I was after a few drinks without the alcohol. So when I tell people, get up there and tell your story, get out of your comfort, do this and that, and act like you're drunk, that's what I mean. Be the person you were after a few drinks without the alcohol. I mean, there were times when I even faked like I was drunk to do stupid things, and I wasn't really that drunk. But yeah, that's what's brought me in for starters. Who wants to come in? Theophilus, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Hi, I'm an alcoholic. My name's Theophilus, and ultimately, what brought me in was my wife putting her foot down, and I was grateful for that. But I'll explain the story behind it all. Like John said, I just was not comfortable. I didn't like myself. I didn't like the way I felt as a little kid. And so I had my first drink, I think, of a beer. It was a can of Budweiser when I was about, I don't know, 11 or 12 years old. And I absolutely, positively loved it. It made me feel awesome. And from that point on, I drank as much as I could, as often as I could. And I got to tell you, the effect and the ease and comfort from drinking worked very well for me for a very long time, at least 25 years. And I was able to get a good job and get married and have a kid and buy a house. And I was, living a good life, drinking for a long time. But then what happened was around 2005, 2006, the alcohol quit working and I wasn't getting the effect and the ease and comfort anymore. And I couldn't drink enough to get that. So I had to add some other additional things to my program to get the relief I needed to get the ease and comfort. So I added some other dry goods, stimulants in particular, and that worked really good for about 2 or 3 years. And then all of a sudden that quit working. So now I'm drinking all day and all night. I'm using dry goods all day and all night. And it all quit working on me. And so I started to panic like around 2008, 2009, because I knew I got a serious problem here and there's nothing I can do about it. I am really in a pickle here. And I spent about 2.5 years just getting more and more hopeless and desperate and out of control. I couldn't drink and I couldn't use enough dry goods to get the relief I needed. And it was getting really bad. My life got super unmanageable. I couldn't function. And so finally, on May 17th, 2011, my wife gave me an ultimatum and she said, "Look, you need to get help or I'm going to take our son and we're leaving." That was on May 17th. So on May 18th, I agreed. I told her, thank you. I desperately need help and want help. And so on May 18th, 2011, I went to my first meeting. And when I went through that, the problem was I had a soul sickness. I mean, I was really, really sick and I was depressed and terrified. And so I went to my first meeting, and that was, I just knew when I went into that room and saw those people, I just knew that I was home and that I was going to get the help I needed. And I've been coming back ever since. And all I wanted to do really was just quit drinking and drugging. That's why I went, so that my wife wouldn't leave me and that I could, start to function again. I had no idea what was in store for me, and it's been an absolutely awesome experience over the years. It started out a little slow, and it's gained momentum ever since. But I'm just so glad I found Alcoholics Anonymous, and Alcoholics Anonymous introduced me to my higher power that I have a absolutely beautiful, amazing relationship with now. So that's what I'm focused on now: staying sober and helping other people get sober. And I'm blessed, super blessed. So thanks for letting me share.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Theo. Michelle, come on in, Michelle. What brought you into Alcoholics Anonymous?
I'm Michelle. I'm an alcoholic and addict. I originally came in 1987 when I was 15. And I didn't know I was actually going to Alcoholics Anonymous. I went into treatment because I hated myself. I hated life. I didn't want to live anymore. And I went to the hospital to get help. And I went willingly. And then they introduced me to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was in treatment for 90 days. And I was stayed sober for 18 years. Um, and I wanted to be sober. Um, and I loved Alcoholics Anonymous. I worked steps, I had sponsees, I loved the fellowship. I traveled with International Young People's Conference of AA. And I had a sponsor. I had a home group. I did service work. Um, but then I went to college and I got a career and I quit going to as many meetings and then I quit going to meetings at all. And I quit carrying the message and I quit working the steps. And I said in my head I could carry the message at work and that I didn't need meetings anymore. And I had a surgery and I got addicted to narcotics and started doctor shopping and buying the narcotics on the street, and it just got worse and worse. And then my best friend locked me at her house and tried to help me get off of them because she used to go to meetings with me. She's normie, but that didn't help. That was for one weekend, and I still sneaked it and was still did it. And then one day. I pulled into a the parking lot of a treatment center and I called supervisor way up high in my where I work, and I said I need help because at that point I was getting in trouble at work. I was being sent to this committee because I wasn't going to work a lot. And I said I need help now. Can you help me at work so I don't, get in trouble? And so he said, yeah, we'll take care of it. So I went back into treatment again. I was there 30 days. And but when I got out of treatment, um I went to meetings some, but not much. I didn't work a program. And I stayed dry for many, many years. And and finally, like about I haven't figured out when it was. I just know it was Easter. And I it was like 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I I had in my head, I'm like, well, I got sober when I was 15, so I was too young to to be an alcoholic and to get sober. I was an alcoholic. And so, well, first I've been sober off um the pills since December of 2008, and I never drank at that point, but um um, I saw when I drank this time, I said, well, um I could be a social drinker. So I drank, and then it got worse and worse and worse. And by the time I got here 9 months ago, I was drinking 24/7. And I didn't I had to drink. My body needed it. And I was shaking. I kept drinking to try to get rid of the shakes. I was waking up everywhere, outside, anywhere in my house. I had bruises. I didn't know where they came from. And a coworker said to me, Michelle, you're going to lose your 32 years on the department if you don't get help. That was right there. That in between my mom saying, kept asking me, "Are you okay?" Because um, this is weird, but we have the tea lights at her house, and she kept saying it was grandma turning them on those tea lights kept coming on, and she kept asking me if I was okay, and I kept lying to her. So between the tea lights and my coworker, and so finally I called my supervisor over, and I told him I needed help. And so he called we have a help at the department. He gave me the phone number, and I called that meeting and that Zoom meeting, and I got on that one. And my sister text me the information for the zoocrew.org. She said, try this meeting, the music meeting. This looks interesting because we go to lots of concerts. So I got on there, and I was on the zoo crew for 24/7 forever. And so I have a very supportive family. And I started working the steps. I got a sponsor through the other meeting. I started working the steps right away. And so yeah, I'll stop there for now. Thank you so much.
That's fantastic. George, come on in. What got you into Alcoholics Anonymous?
Hey, George, excuse me, George, alcoholic. What got me into Alcoholics Anonymous was, as some of us say, my butt was on fire. And, I've been around AA for 25 years. I'm not sober 25 years. I initially came in 1999, after a jackpot. And in the process of doing what I was told to do, I walked in, I had to go to a couple of AA meetings. I walked into an AA meeting in Billerica, Massachusetts, because that's the area I was living in at the time. Actually, I was living in southern New Hampshire, but I worked in Billerica. And there was this room, and there was probably about 100 people in it. That's what the end of the day, it was like a 5:30 meeting. And it was still filled with smoke because you could still smoke in the rooms back then. Um, I was kind of like trying to not seem too conspicuous that I'm a new person, but of course we all know now that it's very easy to tell the newcomer. And I quickly got approached by, hey, you're new, blah. I'm like, yeah, I guess, I'm just checking this out. What I didn't know at the time is that that was a closed meeting of AA, and we were going to go around the room and identify ourselves, as opposed to an open meeting where you normally don't identify. And I'm saying to myself, while going around the room, and I did not want to admit that I was an alcoholic. I didn't want to do it. I didn't. I'm like, I'm not going to say I'm an alcoholic. I had that whole idea is that, I didn't want to say it. Anyway, I didn't want to say it. And it came to me, um, and I'm like, well, I'm just checking this out. And, the old timers, hey, keep checking it out, see how that works out for you. And I'm like, well, I stuck around for about 3 months. And one day on my way home from work, I decided I was going to grab a drink. And you know what happened? Nothing. Nothing happened. So I thought I was okay because nothing happened. It like 3 weeks hadn't gone by, and I was already back to where I was, if not worse. Not being able to go to work without drinking, driving by liquor stores just so before and after work, you know, liquor store open at 8 o'clock. I was there at 7:55 because I'd be at work at 8:30 and just to take the shakes off. And that continued on for years, you know. It continued on. This was 2000, 2001, and for the next 10 years, 11 years, I was I was out there and just it got continuously got worse. The jackpots became bigger, the consequences became bigger, and I still fought it. That I still somehow thought I had this under control, and I finally landed in rehab in 2012, the end of, like right before Thanksgiving. Um, and that's kind of like where I got the AA thing started. Things started to make sense for me. An AA group came in to do a commitment, tell us. And one of the guys from the group that was leading the group could see that I was wavering, I would say. I was wavering. And he talked to me after the meeting, gave me a big book, and he asked me, I said, do you think your life is out of control? Do you think that you are still in control of your life? And I'm like, of course. Why wouldn't I be? He goes, well, look at you. You're wearing pajama pants. You got flip-flops on. You can't go out whenever you want to. You're locked in this place. Tell me again how you're in control. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, I'll tell you what, I'll be back it was like in 3 days. He goes, and he told me to read a couple of pages from the big book, The Doctor's Opinion, and 86 through 88. And I said, I'll talk to you then. And you know what? I read that and reread it for the next 3 days and reread it and reread it and talked about it to one of the addiction counselors there. And, I think I found what I need in AA. And, I was there for 30 days, came out. The first thing I did when I came out was to get to an AA meeting. And from that point on, this was 2012 until 2020, I was stayed sober. I stayed sober. You know, I I was like Mr. AA, if you want to call it that, chairing meetings, being secretary to some groups, a couple of groups, being treasurer for another group. Can you believe that? I was the treasurer for a group. Like, you guys are trusting me with money. You're trusting me that I'll pay the rent on this place that we're using for meetings. Yeah, and that I did that until I moved to Florida in 2018, the end of 2018. And you know what? What happened? And throughout, I had a sponsor. Um, I didn't do a whole lot of sponsees. It's just something, I didn't do that. I don't know why. I just didn't. Because I felt like I was doing service in another way by, you know, being the area rep, being the group secretary, which up there it would be the chairperson of the group, and handling the business of the group, and going on commitments with a group to whether it's to another group or to uh, the treatment facilities. And I was doing all of that, and it felt pretty good. And I stayed sober. Then when I moved to Florida, all of that stopped because I chose to stop it. And although my sponsor up there said, "You need to find a sponsor in Florida. You need to find a sponsor," and I just, I found everything that I could find that was wrong with the meetings here. Every meeting that I went to, I found a fault, and the fault was me. I was the person that was the fault, I should say. They talk God way too much. They do this way too much. They don't know how they're doing this. You hear the stories, and I replicated that, which was I was finding excuses not to go to meetings, even though the previous from 2012 to 2020, or around that time, 2018, 2019, really, I was staying sober, and I was happily sober, and my marriage was thriving, and we were doing well business wise. And that came crashing down because I went back to drinking. And for the next, of course, I was caught right away because, my wife's going to me, go, "Are you all right? Seems like you're slurring your words. Blah, you don't seem right. You're talking too much when you come home, you know." And yeah, I was caught. Like, went back. And for the next, this was 2020 through COVID and all of that, I couldn't stay sober. I tried online meetings. I fought those with a passion. Um, People tell them, go to Zoom meetings, go to Zoom meetings. I'm like, those don't work for me. It doesn't work. I got to be in the meeting, physically be in the meeting itself for it to work. We know that today is not true, because my primary group is here at the Zoo Crew, and it works just fine if you work it. And until, for the next 3 years, until August of 23, when I yet had another jackpot and found myself back in going to detox and rehab. And I knew where to pick up right away. I knew what to do at that point. I knew, it's like there's a saying in AA that AA will ruin your drinking, because after you've had enough of AA like I did, you had a lot of AA in your life. When you pick up a drink, I knew I was doing something wrong. And I was telling myself I can stop. Problem is, I couldn't stop. No matter how hard I tried, how many promises I made to myself, I couldn't stop. So I started pretty much to hate myself, to hate life, just to hate everything and everyone around me. And, all of that took me that day, yeah, at the end of the day, I landed in jail. And the next day I went into, after I got out, went right to detox and rehab, and was there for the next 25, 26 days. And I knew what to do when I came out. AA was going to save my life if I was serious about it. And I've been here since then. It's 992 days today since that day that I, sitting in a jail cell, just really the next morning, sitting in front of a judge. And just at that first time in my life saying, yes, I'm guilty, because what I did, I did. I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend that what I did didn't happen. So I'm going to take responsibility for what I did and move on with my life, because I know what to do to get sober and stay sober. To go to AA, get a sponsor, and work the steps, sponsor other people. And that's where I've been. I've been with the Zoo Crew. I do some in-person meetings, not as many lately, because one of the things that happened is that I lost my driver's license 3 years ago, and probably won't have it back ever. If, maybe in another 2 years when the 5-year mark hits, we'll see. But I'm not worried about that. The only thing I worry about today is, am I doing the next right thing? Because I know if I do the next right thing, I'll stay sober. if I put trust in God and trust in my fellow AA people, I know I'm going to stay sober. And the trust is fully there. I love being part of the zoo crew. And it's grown my sobriety by leaps and bounds every single day that I'm here because of people like yourselves that are in the meeting right now. So yeah, that's how I got here, and that's why I'm here, because I'm an alcoholic. Thanks.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, George. I guess a follow-up question would be, what did you expect? Did you have any expectations about when you came into AA, about AA? Did you know what you were getting yourself into? I know I had no idea what I was getting into. Uh, so I'm stationed in Beaufort, South Carolina, and spring of '82, I told some friends that I'm going to sign up for a deployment to go to Japan. And when I get to Japan, I'm going to quit drinking, quit smoking, and join AA. For decades, I said, I don't know where that crap came from. But then about 10 or 15 years ago, I remembered when I lived in New York, there were public service announcements on the radio at about 10, 11 o'clock at night. Do you think you have a drinking problem? Alcoholics Anonymous can help. So that's where that came from. But I had never been to an AA meeting, didn't know the first thing about Alcoholics Anonymous, but I knew I needed help. I never quit drinking on my own. Never quit smoking. I used to smoke 2, 3 packs of cigarettes a day. Never tried quitting on my own because I knew I needed that medication. And without a substitute, no, I needed medication. So I needed a viable substitute. So spring of '82. So the deployment to Japan wasn't until June. I knew this, but I told them this around March or April of that year. So why wait 2 months? And then why wait till I get overseas when more resources are available in the US? But in hindsight, that was my higher power looking out over me. And that was the path that my higher power chose to go over there to get sober. But when I got over there, notice my sobriety date is September, and I got over there in June because when I got over there, a 6 pack on base was $1.50, and a fifth of rum was $2.10. So you know what I did my first 3 months. But then one day, coming back from out of town, I took the last drag of my cigarette, took the last sip of my drink, and said, I'm going to do this thing that I told these guys I was going to do. And I found that over the years, it's best for me to let some people know, a few people know what I plan on doing, in order to commit myself to doing it. And by doing that, I said, yeah, I have to do it. So yeah, the next day I turned myself in for treatment in the Marines in Japan. They put me on antabuse for a month, forced me, told me to go to AA. And my first few weeks and going to meetings, I introduced myself as John, the alcohol abuser. And then one day I introduced myself as John, the alcoholic. And it's like someone stuck a pin in a balloon, and the pressure was off. Um, but but it wasn't until after I had a nervous breakdown. So I didn't go to inpatient treatment. It was again through the military. I think I was still going to work and treatment part time. I forget. I forget. So I had a nervous breakdown on my birthday. My birthday is October 29th, and my sobriety date is September. So about a month and a half after I got sober, I had a nervous breakdown. Ended up in the psych ward, and the psychiatrist said I was diagnosed with paranoid schizo. The psychiatrist said if I kept going the way I was going, eventually I would have been scared of my own shadow. And I could see that. So I spent a week there, but very soon after I left, the voices went away and that irrational fear subsided, and I started my recovery. But even before that, I started to change. I saw the changes in myself, along with other people seeing the changes in me. I knew it was about me changing. I had to change. I could not be the same person uh, that I was prior to coming into AA. I had to change. And everything I did my first 5 years was out of my comfort zone. I would, I faked it. I faked it until I made it. And that's how we did it. You know, that's the term we used back in the 80s when I first came in. Fake it till you make it. You know, I was not comfortable at all, but I did it anyway. Sometimes I developed an alter ego. Like, that's not really me doing this. That's whoever it is doing that. And I would picture myself levitating and looking at this person, you sharing or talking or, yeah. But I knew I had to change, and I know I have to continue to change to, uh, never rest on my laurels to stay sober. So, what did you expect? Did you have any expectations? Yeah, what did you expect when you came into AA? Come on in, Michelle, come on in.
Wow. I, d- what did I expect? Back then, I'm still Michelle, an alcoholic and addict. Back then, I'm trying to remember. I think I expected that stereotype of all the old people, you know, this because the smoking the cigarettes and drinking coffee, which there were back then, because like George said, you could smoke there in the meetings until we had a group conscience and had to be in the back of the room, which didn't make that huge of difference. That's a joke. And um, so, but then I found, like I said, I found the young people's groups and stuff, and I brought them over to my home group. Um, yeah, so that's what I expected then, but that's okay because I wasn't gonna let that stop me from getting sober. Um, and this time with the Zoom meetings, so that was the big change for me because I had no idea. I'm like, what is it? I've never used Zoom in my life. And so I'm like, well, first of all, I had to figure out how to use Zoom. And then I'm like, well, that was a big deal. And so this was weird using Zoom. And I had no idea what to expect with Zoom meetings. So I didn't know anything about the difference between leading a meeting and the hosting the meeting and how to mute and and all this stuff. So um and like the different kinds of meetings and I mean, it's not different, but I just had to learn Zoom meetings and it didn't take long and it's the same um and like the zoo crew has literature meetings and everything too. And um, but I just had to learn the technology. So yeah, so that's it. Thank you so much.
All right, fantastic. George, come on in.
Hey, George, alcoholic. You know what I expected the first time I walked into an AA meeting? I expected you were going to show me how to drink, how to control my drinking. That's what I expected. These people are going to show me how I can just have a drink and stop. And then when I was told, no, 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 you don't understand. If you're alcoholic like us, your drinking days are over. And I couldn't imagine that at the time. And I couldn't imagine it. I'm like, how, what do you mean I can't drink ever again? Or better yet, I shouldn't drink ever again. Of course I can drink. I can go pick up a drink, but should I? No. You know, I wasn't prepared for that abstinence part. But the second time around when I came back in and I knew a little bit more about it and I knew that I was definitely alcoholic, and I never expected that I would be got as involved as I did in AA. I did the whole 90 and 90. Hell, I did more than 90 and 90 because I was going to 3 meetings a day, every day, you know, in-person meetings. I would go in the morning with my sponsor just about every day. We'd go and travel around Eastern Massachusetts. He'd take me to meetings everywhere and introduce me to people because everybody seemed to know him. So I was like, this was kind of cool. Then he dropped me off at a 1 o'clock meeting or 2 o'clock meeting that took place in my hometown there where I was living in Lowell, Massachusetts. And it was at the homeless shelter. And I learned a lot at that particular meeting. And then at night, I would go with some of my buddies from AA, or I'd have my brother-in-law drop me off to a meeting. And I never expected that. That's not what I expected coming in, but I grew so much during those first 90 days. And I never expected to be, secretary to a group, treasurer to a group. Because those things seemed so far away when I first came in that I'm like, I'm not going to do that. That's for people that are really, that's not me. But, I just wanted to give back to the group after a while. They were giving me sobriety. And initially, I didn't know what to expect, but I got more than I ever expected. And I grew more in sobriety and in my own, in myself than I ever expected. I didn't expect my personality to change the way it did. Yeah, it saved my life. So I guess I didn't expect that either. Thanks.
All right. Theophilus, come on in.
Okay, yeah. Hi, I'm Theophilus, alcoholic, and the reason I went to AA is because I thought I was under the impression that to get checked into a rehab, I had to be sober and be able to pass a drug test. So I wanted to go to AA for a couple weeks just to hold me over before I checked into rehab. And little did I know that I'm still here. So I detoxed and I'm still in rehab here. In AA, I never did have to check into a rehab or a 30-day program like I thought I was going to need. I got everything and more here in AA. And the biggest gift I've gotten, I thought I just was going to help me quit drinking and, save my marriage. And so much more than that, a million times more. And the biggest benefit, the biggest blessing is that I'm a completely different person now. And I have a sincere interest in other people. I used to tell people, hey, this is how I am. If you don't like it, too bad. This is just how I am. It can't be changed. And boy, was I wrong. With a little bit of willingness and open mindedness, God has changed me into a completely different person that is comfortable in his own skin and able to help people. And I feel great. I'm filled with gratitude every day. I have a blessed life. So again, I was expecting just to learn how to quit drinking, and I've received, a million times more than that through this program. It's a miracle. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've got a life beyond my wildest dream as well. Beyond my wildest dreams. Uh, yeah, this thing works, man.
I, I'm
Anybody
in,
else?
yeah, I remembered something else that I didn't expect that, I had the fun. You can have fun in sobriety. The first time I got sober, we went to so many different dances and like George is saying about going all over the place. I went to, living where I live, we have AA meetings all over, you know, like what 100 meetings a day. You could just travel all over and meet all different people. And then you can find a dance every weekend. And then when with the Zoom, I was like, how are you gonna have fun with people on Zoom. And then with us, we have our picnics and we have our get-togethers. And I've already been to two and already met people um, with our get-togethers. And I have three scheduled already. So, and going on the cruise. And so yeah, who would expect that, when you get sober, if you're not used to uh, you know, used to that, especially with Zoom. I'm so excited. Yeah. So yeah. Um,
That,
yeah, so that's it. I'm very grateful and I'm very happy to be sober today.
I know getting sober at 21, you got sober at 15,
Yeah.
and getting it sober at 21, if sobriety was not fun, if sobriety was boring, I would not still be here 43 years later. I'll have 44 years in September. And if sobriety was not fun, I would not be here. If I could not have fun in sobriety, and I can do everything I want to do. I can do everything I want to do. So I do some things that people have to be drunk or high to do. And I am, I do it sober, stone cold sober. So yeah, you can do anything you want. Now, the things I wanted to do over the years have changed. Some of the things I wanted to do have changed, and some haven't. So yeah, sobriety is fun. You get out of it what you put into it. You can have fun in sobriety, and yeah, with the zoo crew, we do meet in person. We make it fun. We're deadly serious about sobriety, but we have fun. We make it fun. Uh, yeah. Anybody else, George? Any? We're about to close it down. Any parting words?
Um, no, not really, other than, yeah, you know what? I gotta admit, I have fun in sobriety that I never thought I would. I enjoy life a little bit more. I enjoy doing things a bit more because, hey, I can remember them.
Yes, we can remember them and we can afford them.
Yeah.
Any parting words, Theo?
Yeah, just the freedom. I was being dominated and I didn't like it. I was being strangled to death, dominated. And now I'm a free man and I love that. I can do anything, anytime. I can go anywhere I want, anytime. And I'm not a slave to anything anymore. I have total freedom, and that's just huge. What a blessing.
Fantastic. All right, guys. So we're gonna end this, and thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for attending this podcast on our parking lot podcast. And again, we talked about what got us into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm sure our members will enjoy listening to this. So have a great day and keep charging the road of happy destiny. And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed listening to the story and have subscribed and liked our videos. Please feel free to also share on our videos and comment on them as well. This will heighten the algorithm, raise the algorithm so that they can go out to more people. And remember, our podcast link is on our website. Everything is on our website at thezoocrew.org. 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 Thank you, everybody. And with that, I'm going to end the video.